Oh, you're streaming. Well, that's loud. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so really happy to be here. Happy to always happy to see kids. Kids are good people, typically, right? Most of the time, it's you guys are good. I was really happy to come to see when Dr. Ward runs into somebody. Say, "Are you okay?" And it gave me some thought to say, "Are you not okay most of the time?" No, you guys are pretty good, right? I can see. So the first thing I got impression of in school is everybody seems to be happy. That's right. You guys are happy. When that no, you're not happy. Okay. If you're not happy, we'll make you happy. Okay. That's my job here is to make you happy. And so I visit a lot of schools, around schools. I teach. I used to teach at Michigan State University. I used to teach at University of Oregon. Now I teach at the University of Kansas. I also teach in Australia and in England, in China. So I kind of been teaching in different places, mostly university level, mostly like a master level, doctor level. But I also work with schools. I've been helping schools from very young kids, like 2.5-year olds to high school. So I've been dealing with a lot of kids. And the kids are in generally more interesting than adults. That's and I have children. I think I'm going to show you my daughter, who is so you can feel like that's my daughter. Just can so you can relate to that right now. She's now in college studying English and philosophy in Scotland. So that's very far away place. And so I was going to ask you something. When Dr. Ward said I'm a futurist, I'm not really a futurist. I'm more of a historian of to say what happened in the past. What does it mean for the future? Because you guys in a great school, you think about your future. You think about what's going to happen to you. So this is like you're into a lot of classes. So I'm going to ask you a question about this. What do you think of this? So this is basically the percentage of people employed in different classes. Okay, you can say this is the timeline, 1800 to 2009, and this green line is people who are engaged in. Can you see it? Are those people in the back? You guys, you can stand up if you can see it, because this line goes to almost nothing. So this is the people who are engaged in farming, fishing, forestry. So they're going down way here. And then you can see, then since the 1800, these are people called in the working class, people who are employed, like construction, manufacturing. So you are work for somebody. This is the line that's been changing. And you see here, this is people in the service industry and the creative industry. How do you make of this? Anybody wants to? Remember, this is the time 2009. Those are percentage. Anybody wants to offer some observation of this? Say that again. Yes, more people on the service industry than ever before. So that means you see a rise. So you see the trend. Go ahead. So when working began to thin, the number rose. But do you guys notice that you take history class, when was the Industrial Revolution? Do you guys remember? In the 1800, right? Remember there was the steam engine? It was invented about 1840s, 30s, right around those time. And the trains, do you remember those things? You guys remember that time? So that what happened here is that you said the big rise. So that's a sudden rise. When we say something suddenly goes up, something goes down, we call that a revolution. So what did the Industrial Revolution do? Created people more jobs, but then also means fewer people doing farming work. And now we have in America, we have probably less than 3% of people doing farming work. Are we getting less food? We're getting more food. Why? Technology, right? What's that? Technological advances, right? That's a big thing. But then when everybody becomes this working class, massively blue collar workers. Do you see this sharp decline here? That's around 1940s. Actually, the main sharp decline is right in 1970s. You know what happened there? What? Not Great Depression, because that means you don't have a lot of workers now. You had a good answer. What's that? Automation. So that's what happened here is we used to have jobs like this. Now we have no jobs. So that's the big change. It's on the so then I think someone observed what's on the rise. There's two groups. What's going up? The creative and the service industry. And that, as a result, has produced some big problems that America faces. We call this the disappearance of the middle class. Because what the service industry don't pay much. So you become, so basically we used to have a working class, the people working for assembly lines, they had a lot of money. They made a stable middle class job. But now those jobs are gone. Then you have people, you are in the creative class, you make a lot more money. If you're in the service industry, you don't make. So you see this, the widening income gap since the 1970s. So America is having trouble, facing with a shrinking middle class. That's why you must be aware right now, America is very split as a country. So when there's inequity exists, widens, what happens? People don't like each other anymore. So this is how we have Americans' tension of xenophobia, anti-immigration. In Europe, you have the Brexit, and England, UK is trying to split from Europe, all of those things. But what I really want you to think about is, given this, what can you do? What are you going to do? How do you occupy a space? This is not stopping. This is not stop. So basically, more and more jobs will be gone. And now America have you heard of this term called the gig economy? The gig economy, like, you drive an Uber, you just do a gig. About 30% of Americans that don't want to be employed. They are just running their own things, freelancing. So very few people actually are looking for jobs. And because there are no jobs to be found, what you need to become, you want to become a job creator. So the best jobs out there, most secure jobs in essence, are the ones you create by yourself. So this is the key, I think, for you. When you guys are looking for, I'm going to look for employment. There are practical problem, no job, traditional sense of jobs, and other than driving for FedEx or deliver Amazon products. But those things actually will be gone too. Are you aware of the autonomous driving cars, self-driving cars? They're coming, right? The Google cars, Apple cars. So even you won't even have a job as a Uber driver. Now they're already, I think, in Nevada, trucks, without drivers already going on the road. So imagine how many jobs are going to disappear. So those things. So what I think I'm going here to invite you to think is that, how can you become this creative person? So the new technology, basically, we can't compete with machines. So you have artificial intelligence. Like for people say, oh, let's learn how to do coding. Learn coding is not necessarily going to guarantee a future either. Just computer coding itself, because artificial intelligence can code itself. There's no job that's traditional guaranteed. So what relies, what's going to happen in the future is basically we call creative entrepreneurs. You have to invent your own jobs, create your own jobs, invent your way, but also understand that we have a lot of great people. So this is this kid, Suhas. He was the youngest, many years ago, youngest CEO to join the Davos Forum. He's from India. He founded his company when he was 13. He was from Bangalore, a very poor family in India. He just loves to basically play on the internet, playing video games, computer. He did not have a computer. He spent a lot of his time in the cafe. India, 2007, 2006. Remember that time was really did not have this. He did not have the money, so he began to think of how to make more money. He said, but this was really actually even 2003 before that. So many American companies did not even have websites. So he was one of those kids. He said, okay, I'm going to find a company and to build websites for American companies. And that's began the outsourcing to India, how he made a lot of money. He hired his math teacher to help him too with all those kind of things. So it was really cool thing. So these people are driving, are creating their own jobs. He did not go look for a job. He created a job. And so never underestimate what you can do. So I met another kid, this guy, when he was in school, he designed this, he's called Nutcase. He designed a really cool business type of iPad holder. And now he went to design school in England. He's from Spain. He hired his father to run his company. So this is a big inventors, or those kind of things. And then people go to different places. I know. So there's a lot of kids. So this guy, it's a good friend of mine, Devin. He runs one of the largest debate camps in China for Chinese kids. He's from Connecticut. You know, the school had a big shooting of Sandy Hook. Have you heard about that? He's nearby that school, from Joe Barlow High School. In his final year, he didn't not to go to college. So he did not like what's going on. He asked his social studies teacher. He said, I want to go away as far as possible. And because his family was not doing well at that time, and said where to go. And the teacher said, well, how about China? So he just went to China. He enrolled in a Chinese course in Beijing. But that's right in 2007, before the 2008 Olympics Games. And he did not like the school. He wanted to learn Chinese, but he said, well, being taught is not the best way. So he began to hang out on the streets, and then he realized he wants to make some money, and he could do two things. One is to teach English. One is to play jazz piano. He was in a jazz band. So he actually hung out on the streets of Beijing, made a lot of friends, made a living by teaching English. Then he decided to form a company to help Chinese kids to apply for American schools. It's a lot of them. And his Chinese become so good, they become the youth volunteer leader for the Olympic Games in Beijing, 2008. He came back, he applied and went to school in Columbia University in international politics. Then he founded a really great international organization for college kids to understand China more. More important, he went back to China. He founded Sunrise, which is a company because he was a debate champion, state champion for Connecticut. So he began to introduce American high school debate into Chinese high schools. He was featured by The Economist as the person who is bringing more critical thinking to Chinese system than the Ministry of Education. So he's very young, and now he doesn't make money by teaching debating, but he makes money by having the students join the debate tournaments. So he organized a lot of them. He has hundreds of thousands of Chinese school students doing this thing. So it's, again, young student who did all of this work. So I want to give this example for you to think about. Every one of you needs to think about not to look for a job, but to create a job. And that job exists. It exists everywhere. Then one final thing I want to share with you is to think about, what do you have to offer? What do you have to offer? So everybody has something to offer, but normally that something may be misunderstood. So very quickly, everybody knows the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. You guys know this? This is a great story. Okay, so Rudolph had a red nose, right? And red nose was considered bad in the school of reindeer, right? So remember the school. So Rudolph has a problem because the school of reindeer. Imagine the school in the reindeer village, like the state of California. So its high school graduation test would be all noses should be black or brown, something like that. So Rudolph was not liked, and he would have been put into special education or credit recovery, something like that. But however, somehow one day on the foggy Christmas Eve, what happened? Santa came to look for a GPS, actually, which is more or less, or something to guide. And then they found Rudolph. So the red becomes the new black, right? So the useless suddenly becomes useful. That's something really important to remember. You have some strength. You have some ability. Sometimes people may think that's bad, but it can be turned to something good. So in human world, there's a reality to, there's a lot of people, lots of useless people have become useful. Lots of people who are very, traditional be very useless, but they have become useful. A good example, I'm hesitant to do that, but I'm going to show you this. I always love this story of Kim Kardashian. Don't you think she's a good example of useless being useful? She's really useless in most places. Would you think, right? She's useless to most people, but how come she's making a living? You got to understand this question, right? You have to, the same thing. So you ask a question about all these entertainers. What does she do? She does nothing, right? It's really, she's a celebrity for nothing. Don't you? Would you agree? There are worse people than she. Okay, that's many people. I just want to use an example here. The reason I put up here is that she does something that's of value to some people. So she's very much like, you think how we live, technology puts us live in a very different society. We live in a society of so-called abundance, which most people consume psychological products. If it's psychological, it's service. You guys have done, you look at yourself. How many of you are consuming things that's completely useless and not necessary? Unnecessary things. You guys know unnecessary things. In San Diego, I mean, this kind of weather, what kind of things are necessary? You examine your life. Most of stuff you consume is unnecessary. It's like Kim Kardashian. They're just useless, you know. But we consume this, so it's psychological. So are you able to create those kind of different uniqueness? I would say musicians, from Kardashians, that angle, you would say musicians are useless, athletes are useless. They don't produce anything you can eat. They don't produce anything you can wear. They don't produce anything that keeps you alive. They're all psychological. So are you able to provide psychological products? In America, if you look at right now, the manufacturing industry is already much smaller than the entertainment industry. So are you able to, here's what I'm going to end with to say, can you basically create value for other people? So everybody, we call this a jagged profile. Everybody is unique in some way. Like imagine yourself. You may be the red guy or you may be the blue shirt guy. You have strength, you have weaknesses. You look at the red guy, if you on average, they may be the same size on average. But somebody, the red one, has, I don't know, is shorter but bigger. So depends on what kind of job you want for them. You want to hire different things. Each one of you, you have some weaknesses, you have some strength. And how do you turn your strength and weakness and strength and interest, many of you have different interests too, into something valuable? This is what I want to advise you for you to think about. Can you create something that's valuable? So here's the deal. Think about yourself. When you create a job, your career for the future, are you good at something? Are you interested in something? So if you're not good at anything, if you're not good at that thing, and you don't like doing that, what should you do? You should, what I call, avoid it at any cost. You should really avoid it. So don't do something, that's really, you have no potential. You can learn, we believe in mindset. Everybody can learn. But if you, unless you have the talent, opportunity, that learning is very limited. For example, we can all learn to draw, to paint, but very few of us can become a Picasso. No matter how hard you try. Everybody can learn to swim, but very few of us can become a Michael Phelps. So you need to find what you're talented in, what you have opportunity to learn, what your whole environment provides. So that's ability, but also you have to find something that you're interested in. You like doing that. You really have to like doing it. So anyway, if you're not good, you're not interested, don't do it. And what if you actually are interested in something? Many of you are, like kids. But you really don't have talent. And so you should treat that simply as a hobby. For example, I love football, but how many Asian football players have you seen? Any of the teams. If I get under, I can do it. I just keep it hot, but I have no talent. So you like it, you have no talent. But what if you're like, you're good at something, but you really hate doing that? There are some things, right? That's what I call a temporary job. Just call it a job. Where I want you to send you guys to think about is a career. Find something you're really good, something you have interested in, but all of this has to come into create value. So this is I'm a professor, I would like to lecture. In the end, I hope you kept this in mind. Are you great and unique? No matter what you're doing, you really have to be good and great. You have to be unique. If you are just like another person, it doesn't work. Whether we're university admissions or job situations, you really have to have a unique combination. If you're just like another person, like get 5 5s on the AP, have the same 5 AP, that doesn't work. You have the 5 letters of recommendation, it won't work. Something that makes you stand out, not only for university, but in life. And also, do you really have interest and passion? When we read a lot of applications for jobs and university applications, we're looking for passion. Because, I'm interested in doing this, I'm passionate. But our second question is to say, well, what evidence do you have? What have you done for your passion? And then can you combine your ability, your passion, to create something valuable for other people? If you can create something valuable for other people, you will have a job. You will have a career. Are you able to create something better, beyond yourself? Doing something valuable for other people. So that's the question. You can do something, you're interested in doing something, but who cares? So who cares about that? So I work with we work with a foundation called the Lemosen Foundation. We do invention education. We always ask questions. Actually, there was a guy from Silicon Valley on the same advisory board. We were just meeting last week in Portland, Oregon. Silicon Valley and the invention, we always ask in range 3 questions. Okay, are you solving a problem that's worth solving? You always should think about, as a person, are you solving problems worth solving? So is the problem significant? You're trying to pick. Second thing, why you? Why should you solve the problem? What makes you unique? Why is your solution better? The third one is called, why now? Why is now the time? All basically venture capitalists ask questions. When you have an idea, you go to seek money and say, well, why is this problem? Why you? Why now? So think about that. This applies the whole thing. Are you using your great unique talents, interest to solve problems worth solving, creating value for other people? So that's kind of the advice I gave you. I try to think about it and be welcoming some questions. Thank you.
Any questions?
So if you have a unique ability that nobody else can define, how do you market that and explain it to the market, to the people who need it, what you do, what it is that you do and that you want to sell to them?
That often because right now, if you are unique, that means you are uniquely strong, you have unique weaknesses. That is, so you always work in teams. That you always try to get people to understand you. So you can pick up problems. That's what I call this. You can create something valuable for others. And this is going to take a long time to do. That's why in my whole writing about schools, we get kids engaged in early on, like as early as like 2.5-year-olds to take charge of their own life, to learn to recognize problems worth solving. So your question is the same thing. Basically, you would have a big social network. That is, you've created something along the way that people know you have that unique talent. Some people just unique at good talking to others unique at social networking. So I think our school's tradition want people to be good, average on everything. Now we actually have to be unique. So that marketing is done through authentic products, is through authentic problem solving. And many of you probably know now on the internet, there's one group of very talented people doing Instagram or YouTube videos. They somehow went viral, all those things. But not everybody can do it. And not everybody can replicate the same thing. So it's more through a long sustained process of creating authentic products, solving problems. And once you have that, it's available. As many of you know, like big companies like Google, they really don't hire people based on your college degree or major. They actually scout you. They find out what you've done. And there's a lot of companies that are going through that process. They can find you, and they come always to jobs come look for you typically if you're really good.
Thank you, Dr. Zhao. Excuse me. I'm curious, it sounds like the best path forward is to be entrepreneurial, but often, like you mentioned, the fellow who went to China, he had to work first to establish himself. And I'm curious if you recommend any particular trade skills. You kind of said software is not going to be applicable, but I think for at least like 20 years, people with software engineering background will be employable. Are there any specific skills that you recommend to kind of help people get a job while they're developing their uniqueness?
Well, I think the idea is this. I don't think there's any one particular field that's going to be very strong or not. Because remember that all the jobs, for example, we examined STEM workforce. That's overproduced. America overproduced by 1/3 of STEM workers. We overproduce. We call the top one and top STEM field people when Wall Street bankers. The bottom ones drive Ubers, and the middle ones get a few jobs, some jobs. It's actually fascinating when we look at the new statistics. So what I'm encouraging young people, the reason I would say this is that I would not encourage you to be into one specific field, because a lot of them with all the labor market is very short term. Like in this few years, we're looking for this. Next few years, we may not. Like in America right now, I think under Trump with the let's say, trade, a lot of companies will come back here. You will see starting a surge in rise in demand of this. A few years later, we began to more globalization. Those jobs are going to disappear. That's why I don't bank on any field. My son he studies art history. My daughter is English and philosophy. I'm never worried about what their jobs. Another thing when you talk about even hiring jobs, the guy who went to China, he created his kind of jobs in many ways. Everybody's different. Some people may have to go through some early jobs, go to work at a restaurant, at a bar, or, some people may just start, they have ideas. People are very different. So in a lot of my writing, I'm really trying to more emphasis on a long process of students creating a unique profile of themselves. And that unique profile would, of course, have some of the basic things. For example, be nice. That's cool, to have. And being smart and resilient. Because I don't like, when people talk about specific ideas, but that's something I've been doing research on to say, people say growth mindset, resilience, great. Those things are the fundamental factors for all. That's actually not true. That only works some people. Sometimes you need to be smart enough to give up things. To say, I don't want to have a growth mindset in this field. So that you don't want to have sometimes that's simple I call stupidity if you keep doing the same thing. And some students actually have too much great. They never give up. Just why would you do the same? You're supposed to learn to give up. So there's a lot of things. My view is really on very individual profiles. I call the right mix. The right mix. Even creativity. For example, we don't want people to be extremely creative on some jobs. Actually, so you have the right mix. I don't have time to explain the whole thing to you, but I will do this tonight. For example, we know, just think about how are you different. We have different dimensions. The right mix, for example, the right mix of cognitive talents. Some people are better in music. Some people are smart with language. Some people are smart with visuals. So that's what we call this one area, cognitive ability. You're different. Then we have different personalities. So what's the different matches? For example, extroverted people may be good. You have extroverted musicians. maybe versus introverted musicians. How do you combine that? So when does extroverted work better than introverted? They're all of value. You know, conscientious people, you know, the opposite of conscientious, the other end is called neurotic. But neurotic people are really creative people. So you know, but if you're hiring like the accountant, you may not want a neurotic people. You want maybe a kind of a conscientious, extroverted person to help you to work on those things. So there are different kind of professions, and also people have different motivations. For example, some people are driven by different. So some people are interested in power, some people are interested in knowledge, some people are driven by revenge. That's good for sports teams, but not good for driving the car on the road. You know, just it's a different professions have different mix. So you ask yourself, you know, because remember I showed you Rudolph and Kim Kardashian. Because every combination can be useful if you can create value for others. So anyway, that's so I'll get a chance to do more about this later on. This is the psychology. This is a lot of brain research showing the new ways of how people are different. The overall idea basically is we call the end of average. If you are just average, it probably won't work out.
Any other questions? Raymond?
Yes, hi. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on the YouTube platform, and would you say that if you were trying to sell something like that, that YouTube is a good platform to share your ideas?
Well, I mean, I'm not a big YouTube user fan, and but I think right now any of those kind of broadcasting platform works pretty well. If YouTube, you have Vimeo, and you probably can run your own website. You can use Twitter to send stuff out. I think any of this media that's kind of can send you out. But also, I don't know how, do you have a class on that? Do you guys study about social media, for example? How do you become more effective marketers of social media? How not? You know, I myself have not. Have you used it? YouTube? No. Are you a producer on YouTube, or are you a consumer of YouTube? Consumer. Though I'm just interested. Has any of you guys own a YouTube channel? You do?
I haven't updated it in a while. Okay. I got a small one. I haven't really updated it in a while, so.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do have one, and I am a massive consumer of YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I'm really encourage you guys to try that, because, you know, if, for example, if you really have some talent, people have done it successfully through YouTube, marketed very well. You know, you've seen people doing fashion reviews. There's a young girl doing fashion review. She become very successful. She reviews children's, you know, fashions. And there's another one reviews children's toys. You know, so that you have different angles. But I do encourage you to try to practice. Another thing about YouTube and this technology, it just simply gives you a platform to get out to the real world with very little cost. With very little cost. That's something you need to keep in mind. You know, your smartphone probably has more capacity for multimedia processing than $50,000 at Hollywood in the 1950s. So why don't you just make use of that? And all of this, another thing, when I working around this one big thing I emphasize in schools is to starting as young as possible to start create things that matter, authentic products. I mean, you spend a lot of time doing work. How much of a work is really solving someone's real problems? Marine asked that. So I've been working with a group of schools in Australia. So this group of actually about 9th graders and 10th graders. I helped them to form that children's English publishing company. It's called All Saints College. So they've been hired to write children's English stories, producing multimedia, animation, and movies and music for kids in China. So their work is been selected and they're paid a royalty. So in this case, so their English class, their entrepreneurship class is turned around. So these kids have to be very concerned about the quality of their work because children actually using them. So they're learning how to talk to Chinese kids, how to do the market survey, how to understand what do they really mean. They're testing different ideas. So I'm working with them, giving the whole framework, but then we work with them. So if you can YouTube or other things, you guys can have a huge channel. I don't know if you you can do a big documentary of San Diego, or documentary of this school. There's a lot of things people want to learn about, but make it authentic.
Okay, we are out of time, so we want to give Dr. Zhao another.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Dr. Zhao, we certainly do appreciate the perspective that you have provided us with today. Thank you so very much. All right, so.
Work, right?
Yes, yes. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Zhao and I have been discussing coming back, he and another group of schools and colleagues coming back to E3 in the summer for some entrepreneurship summer camps. So I want you guys to start thinking about that. And we're thinking this coming summer, 2019. So think about what you can create, some of the things that you are interested in building businesses around. One more round of applause for Dr. Zhao. And since you are in the park, I believe you have all of your belongings with you. LFs, do you need to have any parting words with your scholars? All right, then I want you guys to think about what you, we want them to take the chairs back. I think we'll take them because we got to take them back to the, yes. So we want you guys to think about what you've heard today as you're going home, mull it over, and think about what it means for you moving forward as a scholar, as a young person with a huge career ahead of you. Have a great afternoon. Thank you, guys. You may go home at this time. No need to go back to studios. Bye at Clue.